always look for the helpers. Always look for people out there. There's always gonna be someone out there who's gonna help you. Have you found that to be true?
I have run my whole life like that.
I I'm with you. I have always relied, and maybe that's the reason I was so
Always relied on the kindness of strangers.
110%. You know where I'm going with this. Maybe that's why, for lack of a better term, I was so attracted to you from the very start when I saw you on YouTube doing an interview and yet another van life type interview. And some of the things that you said really stood out to me. And hang tight so that I can introduce you to other people and let them know who you are. Let me just play a brief clip of the first time I met Virginia, someone you're meeting today with me. First time I met her, here's a YouTube clip. You'll get a sense of who she is.
So when I was a massage therapist, I had a client, Michelle, who was watching YouTube videos on vans obsessively, she said. And I said, I've never heard of that. And she said, well, I can't stop watching them. So about a month later, there was nothing on TV, and I was, oh, those van things, I'll just start looking at those. And I went, I could do that. And I had not thought about retiring up until that point, even though I was long past the time I could have retired. And I loved my work. I did it like for 38 years. And then I just suddenly got it in my head, I'm going to do that and retire. And that was it. And I'm one of those people that once I decide to do something, it usually is going to happen. So Ray at Ray Outfit did all of the solar and all of the 110 installation and all kinds of little things that he did for me. So all of that hard stuff.
So you have kind of been like me in a way where you've kind of just leaned on other people from time to time as appropriate. Is that sort of the truth?
Yeah, I've had a lot of people lean on me, so I figure I'm allowed to lean on them when I need it. And I think if you live your life like that, it isn't always the person that you let lean on you that lets you lean back, but the karma builds itself, and then that person, the next person won't mind so much. But I have more luck like that than most people, truly.
Remember like 20 years ago, if you told someone you're living in a van, they'd be like, oh my God, what happened? Now they go, oh my God, I'm so jealous. What is van life?
Oh, you'd have to, each person would tell you it's something different, right? But I think for me, van life was the answer to retiring, because retiring sounded very tiring to me. And then when I got this idea to do this was like the freedom I had in the 60s when vans were allowed again. People didn't really get jealous of you, but a certain kind of person did. And in the 60s, I always wanted a van. So in the 70s, really. And then I didn't have one then because I didn't have my license. But now I do. So for me, it was like the freedom it would give, the excitement that might develop by being not kind of in a day-to-day life trying to find somewhere to volunteer.
Can you tell me about your life pre-van life? Like, did you have a big home? Did you have a little home? Did you have a husband? What was the story there?
I have a house. I still have it. I gave it to my daughter to use. Um, it's downtown Toronto, so it's little because you can't have a big house in downtown Toronto. And I bought the worst house on the street and made it into a beautiful home so I could afford it. I was a single mom. So there's just my daughter and I. We lived in that house, so we didn't need a huge house. I never did have a husband. I had some reasonable facsimiles, but I was never, I didn't really ever believe in marriage because when I was young, I grew up in the 50s. Marriage to me seemed something for men. It seemed like a great deal for men.
Right. Interesting how you put that. That's true. You look at how things how things pan out with marriages a lot of the time. It's like, okay, well, that seems good for you. What about me?
Well, in the 70s, you weren't supposed to ask what about me. You were just supposed to be a good girl and go in the kitchen. But I never did that.
Are you ever down here? I vision you
I
in the US.
was. Oh, yeah, last winter, I was there all winter. until COVID hit. Then I had to race for the border.
And how long when did you get back across the Canadian border, and how long have you been?
So I got over in March, and then I had to do a 14-day isolation up in the mountains. And then I got in my van and went back to Toronto in 6 days across Canada. And actually very nervous because nobody knew how you caught this. And it was very nerve-wracking. But anyway, I got home. I stayed with my daughter in my own guest room for about 6 weeks. And then I went mad. I just couldn't do it anymore. I just got in my van and traveled all around Northern Ontario and found out how absolutely beautiful my own province was. So that was good. And then I thought, well, if my province is so beautiful, when the summer came, I'm going to go and see the rest of Canada. I'm not going to waste this. And so I've seen quite a bit of this beautiful country.
Parts of the country you may not have seen had you been allowed to go all over North America?
Yeah, I would have probably have gone back down to Arizona, California, Utah, or Oregon. I love those places, but I couldn't do that. I had planned on the summer going down east in Canada and then going down the East Coast, but in Canada, you can't go to the East Coast because they have hardly any COVID, so they won't let you in. So they're very wise people out there.
This is not what you had planned. Cool, you got a van, but suddenly you can't go all the places you thought you could go. Have you any regrets or are you just making a to-do list for when things do get better and borders open up again?
Well, all my American friends keep texting me and going, why don't you come here? It's beautiful. And I go, I remember I can't come there. They won't let me. So my heart kind of longs to go and hang out with my Southern friends. But you know what? I am not the least bit sorry. I have had this is what happened. This is it. So I have to make the best of this. And because I've made the best of it, I've had amazing experiences and seen such unbelievable, beautiful things.
Tell me about some of those amazing, beautiful experiences. What are some of the all-time highlights? Name like one or two.
I went way up north and camped by myself and learned how to back up a steep hill by myself in the van, which I was terrified of, but I wanted to go to that campground. So I went there it wasn't a ground, it was just a little piece on the lake, really. It wasn't a campground, it was a logging road, but it was just unbelievably peaceful. I stayed there about 4 days and then I backed out, which I didn't think I could do, but I couldn't turn my big van around.
How big is this van? Give people an idea. What's the length?
It's 22 feet long.
22 feet. And it's
it's 9 feet high.
And it's what brand is it?
It's a Ford Transit. The Great Lakes, right? Do you know the Great Lakes? We share them, our country.
Yes.
Yeah. So Lake Superior is an amazingly huge lake. I think it's maybe second biggest lake in the world. I'm not sure. But it's so big that when you stand on its shores, it feels like an ocean. Like it feels like the only way you'd know it wasn't an ocean is to taste it, honestly. And they have all these little nooks that are for you to camp for free all along the north border. And they have big signs that say, basically, there's a whole lot of rules, but it basically says, if you follow the rules, we'll leave these open. If you don't, we'll close them down. And so they're clean. And it's only like so many camps, like little hidden places are full of toilet paper and garbage and all that kind of stuff. And it's so sad, but none of these were filled with garbage because people read that and they go, oh, I don't want to be the one that shuts it down. I'll take my garbage with me. And I think they should all do that.
Yeah. That's a good motto in life too. It's it's like we've been saying lately. It's like, this is why we can't have nice things, you people. You look at some of the signs or posted placards that say, don't do this, don't do this, don't do this. It's like, why would they tell me that? Oh, because someone has done that.
Yeah. few bad apples, and then it ruins it for everybody.
I know, and that's why I love having people like you on. We got some good apples out there, and I want to be inspired. So can we talk about your age, because that's something that has in the YouTube clip where I found you, it mentioned your age. You say that it gives you a bit of a chuckle when some young person said to you recently, "Oh, so inspiring. Some old person like you hits the road."
Yeah. Well, I don't know if I don't think youth in general, not just because you guys are the youth now, but when I was the youth, have a very good filter anyway. So things sometimes go from the head to the mouth. And I don't, like if someone says I'm old, I am old if they're 20. I'm not so old if they're 50, but I'm 70. And you know what? My mom once said to me that she's enjoyed every birthday she ever had and every year she ever had. So why would that stop now just because she's old? And that's how I try to live my life too, because, I don't jump around like I used to, but I can still get in this van and go. So there you go.
But what took you so long, by the way?
Oh,
Again,
because I loved my work. I absolutely loved my work. I had no intention ever. I was just going to let them carry me out of there in a box because I just loved my work. But then I sometimes I get obsessive about things if I start them. And I watch these videos and then I thought, well, I could do that. And then I had to show myself I could do it. So I built a van and then I had to retire because I had a van, right? So I retired.
do you miss, quote unquote, the old life? Do you miss, is it weird waking up and you probably don't recall from time to time where you are, right? You open up the door and it's like, oh gosh, or oh, it's cold now, or oh, it's hot, or what state am I in?
I think it's invigorating. And there's always a little problem in the day you have to solve, you know, keeps you on your toes. Nothing big, just, where am I going to get water? Or, maybe I should go get some more diesel because I want to be warm tonight. But there's always something that you have to do. And it's kind of like the pioneers, if you think about it. It took a lot more for them to get through their day. So if I cut out TV, I have enough time to do everything I want to do.
Tell everyone what your parents would have thought about you hitting the road, because you did reference at some point in a video I watched, kind of how your mom in some way contributed to this, what your father would have thought and what your daughter did say.
Okay, I know that story. First of all, my dad would have thought it was an amazing thing because he was the one that gave me my sense of adventure, which kind of saved my life because my mom was afraid of a lot of things, elevators, And at a very young age, I remember going, you can't trust mom about what's scary. So I better just try everything she says is scary and see for myself, which got me into a whole lot of predicaments when I was younger. But anyway, so that was the juxtaposition of my upbringing. And when I was going to buy the van, I went to my daughter, and in that, I want to correct something. I said she was 26. She's actually 36. Her partner phoned me and said that he just had a big smile because he had some young chickie all of a sudden. But so I think I'm 60, not 70.
Give or take a decade. Who's counting?
Yeah. Anyway, so I went to her and I said, I'm thinking about buying this van, but grandma left me some money and I was going to use the money, but she would just hate this. This would just put her on edge completely. And my daughter, who's of an age where you can justify anything, I find your generation's marvelous at that justification of whatever they want. She said, but grandpa would have loved this. So just use his money. It was his money in the beginning. Just use his money. So I did.
What does van life mean as defined by Virginia?
Freedom. I think it gave me the opportunity to meet a lot of different people. Then People in vans are not all alike. Just like people in the world, they're not all alike. But you have access to more people when you travel in a van somehow than you do if you're a retired lady living in a house. And, you know, lots of times, I mean, I had a lot of friends. I lived in Toronto, and as they retired, they moved away. So it's not like they weren't my friends, but they weren't accessible. So now I have friends of all ages. I come and go out of their life because we track each other or find each other. And, you know, it's like, hey, you're like an hour away from me. And then we travel for a couple of days and then we part. And so it gives a fluidity to my life that I wouldn't have had in a sticks and bricks at, you know, the corner of walk and don't walk, you know?
Do you get lonely?
Yes, I do. And then I have to tell myself to get out in nature. Like, you know, so if I get lonely, I'm usually in a city. And then I get out of the city and I get back out to somewhere where there's nature. So, which you can't do in a house.
Right.
It's easy to do in a house. You can't just pick up and go in a heartbeat.
What's your message to people who maybe they are encountering some fear or some type of roadblock, and they want to do what you're doing? They want to hit the road. They want to either rent a van for a little while, or create a van as you have, or they want to do something in this new year that's adventurous, and they're kind of having a little trouble getting started. Other than get started, what's another secret to help people maybe get over this fear? What's some advice?
I love this question because so there's two kinds of fear that you can experience. You can have real fear, which is fight or flight fear, which means you should get up and run, or you should put on your boxing gloves, make a decision, go for it. Those are real fears, right? You have to confront them with real run or confront. Those are your choices. Then there's imagined fears. Imagined fears, you need to break them down and find out where they came from and why they're stopping you. And that's a lot of work. And that's what people don't do. They go, I'm afraid, I can't do it. And so they end up not living the best life they can because they let that stop you. So this is my mom. Like, I'm going to walk up 20 flights of stairs because I'm afraid to get on the elevator. That kind of thing, right?
Fear is a lot of work. Mm-hmm.
It's a lot of work. You have to go, why am I afraid? Is it a real fear? Is it a logical fear? If it's not a logical fear, then you should go face it. Like there's no real danger in it, only your imagined danger. So my saying is, I don't know if I can get this on here. Can you see that? It says, don't just dream. Then it has an arrow going up. Do.